The most shocking sexual practices in ancient Rome bedtime stories history. Hello guys, today we will know about the city of Rome, as the sun begins to set, and the long shadows stretch across the Tiber. This narration is meant to help you relax, to let your mind wander into the ancient past, and eventually to fall into a deep and peaceful sleep. There is a quiet mystery in the air, a small, gentle suspense that hangs over the marble and the mud of a world long gone. The streets of Rome are narrowing now, as the light fades. The great city is breathing a slow, rhythmic breath. The stones underfoot are worn smooth by millions of sandals, the cobbles are cool, and the evening mist begins to rise from the river. It is a time of quiet, a time for rest, for the ordinary people who have spent their day under the heat of the Italian sun. Imagine yourself standing in a small alleyway, far from the gilded palaces of the Palatine. Here, the air smells of wood smoke, and baked bread, and the damp earth. The buildings are tall, and crowded together, their wooden balconies leaning toward one another, as if whispering secrets. In the dark, it is very still, very quiet. The houses, the insulae, are small and cramped. They are the homes of the weavers, the bakers, the porters, the people who made Rome breathe. Inside, the rooms are dim, lit only by the flickering glow of a small oil lamp, or the dying embers of a charcoal brazier. The walls are rough, the plaster is cooling, as the night air drifts in through the open shutters. A simple meal has been shared, a bowl of pulse, a thick porridge made of emmer wheat, perhaps flavored with a bit of salt, or a splash of olive oil. For the lucky, there is a small piece of hard cheese, or a few shriveled olives, preserved in brine. The bread is dark, and heavy, and coarse. It is the food of the laborer, the food of the tired, the food that brings a heavy, satisfying fullness to the stomach. The clothing of the day has been laid aside, the tunics of plain, undyed wool, worn and thin at the elbows. They are the color of the earth, the color of the street. They have served their purpose, protecting the skin from the sun and the dust. Now, they are draped over a wooden bench, as the body seeks the softness of a thin mattress, stuffed with straw, or perhaps dry grass. Work is finished for the day. The heavy carts, that were forbidden during the daylight hours, are beginning to rumble. In the distance, their iron-shod wheels, clattering over the basalt blocks. The teamsters shout softly to their oxen. The sound is muffled by the thick stone walls. It is a rhythmic sound, a steady, predictable clatter, that leads you towards sleep. In the market, the stalls are empty. The fishmongers have washed their marble slabs. The scent of brine and scales lingers in the cool air. The vegetable sellers have gathered their remaining leeks and cabbages, and retreated to their small rooms. The forum is a vast, silent space, where the ghosts of the day's arguments have finally been laid to rest. The children, who spent their day running errands for their fathers, or spinning wool with their mothers, are already dreaming. They have played with their rag dolls and their knucklebones. In the dirt, they have learned the weight of a water jar and the texture of the grain. They are tired, their small limbs are heavy, their breath is slow and even. There were schools for some, small, open-air classrooms, beneath a simple awning, where the master's voice droned on about letters and numbers. The children sat on low benches, scratching their lessons into tablets of wax. The scratch, scratch, scratch of the stylus was a repetitive, soothing song that now repeats in their dreams. The shops are shuttered, the heavy wooden planks have been slid into their grooves, the iron bolts have been thrown. The taverns, where the men sat on stools, drinking thin wine and eating salted peas, are growing quiet. the laughter has faded, the voices are low, the dice have been put away, in their leather pouches. The transport of the city has changed its pace. The horses, their coats damp with sweat, are being rubbed down. In the stables, the smell of hay and manure is earthy and grounding. It is a smell of the living world, a smell that signifies the end of a long journey. The animals are content, chewing their fodder in the darkness. The oil in the lamps is burning low now, the small flames flicker and dance, casting long, soft shadows against the lime-washed walls. The city of Rome is a vast hive of stone, and it is settling, slowly, into the cool embrace of the midnight air. You can hear the distant, rhythmic splash of water from the public fountains. The aqueducts never stop, they carry the cold mountain water through the heart of the city, a constant, flowing pulse that whispers to the silence. The streets are empty of people now, only the shadows move. And the occasional stray cat, slipping through the darkness of a doorway. The cobbles hold the last lingering warmth of the sun, but the air above them is crisp and clean. The narrow lanes of the Subura are no longer filled with the shouting of vendors, or the smell of cooking fires. They are filled with the scent of damp stone, and the quiet, the deep, heavy quiet, of a million souls at rest. Think of the weavers, who sat at their heavy wooden looms all day, their fingers moving back and forth, through the rough threads of wool. Their shoulders are tired, their eyes are heavy, they have laid down their shuttles, and the rhythmic clack, clack, clack of the loom has ceased. They lie on their mats, listening to the stillness. Their hands are finally still, their work is woven into the fabric of the city. The porters, who carried the great amphorae of oil and wine from the docks at Ostia, have let their burdens down. They feel the lightness of their own limbs. The weight of the day is gone. They stretch out on the cool floors, feeling the tension leave their backs. The muscles in their legs are soft now, like the cooling wax of a candle. They breathe in, and they breathe out, slowly and deeply. In the small workshops, the tools are organized for the morning. The carpenter has brushed away the sawdust. The scent of cedar and pine remains in the air, a sweet, woody perfume that lingers in the rafters. The hammers are silent, the saws are still, the iron tools are cool to the touch. Everything is in its place, waiting for the first light of dawn. But for now, there is only the dark, and the rest. The bakers are the only ones awake, but they move with a quiet purpose. Their movements are slow and practiced. They knead the dough in the large stone troughs. The sound is soft, a muffled thud, thud, thud. As the flour and water become one, the ovens are being stoked. The smell of the first fires is beginning to drift, but it is a gentle smell, a warm smell, that wraps around the neighborhood like a blanket. The children dream of the hills, and the open fields outside the walls. They dream of the simple games, the rolling of hoops, the chasing of shadows. Their faces are calm, their brows are smooth. They do not know the weight of the empire. They only know the warmth of their blankets, and the steady breathing of their siblings, sleeping beside them, in the crowded room. The clothing of the ordinary Roman is simple, a tunic of wool, or perhaps linen for the summer. It is a garment that has been washed many times, in the public laundries. It is soft and thin, it smells of the sun and the soap. It is a familiar comfort, a second skin that has seen the labor of the day, and now rests with its wearer. In the quiet dark, the markets where the grain was sold are silent and dusty. The floor is scattered with a few stray kernels. The mice scurry softly across the boards, their tiny feet making a sound like the lightest rain. The scales are balanced, the weights are put away. The commerce of the world has stopped, to catch its breath, to recover, to wait. The horses in the stalls are shifting their weight, their hooves making a dull, comforting sound on the straw. They are dreaming of the long roads, the Appian Way stretching out toward the sea. They dream of the wind in their manes, and the steady pace of the journey. They are content, their breath is a soft mist, in the cool air of the stable. The elders, who have seen many such nights, sit for a moment by the window, watching the stars, the same stars that watched over their fathers, and their fathers before them. The stars are bright, and cold, and eternal. They do not change. They watch the city sleep, they watch the river flow, they watch the passage of time, with a silver, silent gaze. The hearth is a circle of grey ash now, the fire has retreated into the heart of the wood. It gives off a faint, pulsing warmth that reaches toward the bed. It is the heart of the home, the place where the spirits of the ancestors dwell, the Laras and Penates, the quiet guardians, who watch over the sleepers, ensuring their safety until the sun returns. The night is deep, and the city of Rome is at peace. The stone buildings, the narrow streets, the flowing water, they are all part of a grand, slow symphony, a song of rest, that has been sung for thousands of years. You are a part of it now, drifting back, through the centuries, into the soft, dark, timeless night of the ancient world. The great docks of the Emporium are silent now. The Tiber flows past the stone wharves with a heavy, rhythmic pull. The water is dark as ink, swirling around the wooden hulls of the grain ships, the ships that have come from Egypt and North Africa. They are tied fast with thick hemp ropes. The ropes groan softly against the wooden pilings, a slow, creaking song of the sea. The sailors are asleep in their bunks, or beneath simple canvas tents on the decks, feeling the gentle sway of the river, back and forth. Back and forth. The warehouses, the Horia, are vast and cool. Inside their thick walls, the smell of grain is overwhelming, a dry, earthy scent that fills the lungs. Millions of modii of wheat sit in silent piles, waiting to be ground into the flour of tomorrow. There are rows upon rows of amphorae, tall clay jars with pointed bases, standing in the sand. They hold the olive oil and the sharp, salty garum. The jars are cold to the touch. Their surface is rough and dusted with the travel of 1,000 miles. Beyond the city walls, the noise of Rome is nothing more than a faint hum. The gardens of the wealthy and the small plots of the poor are bathed in the silver light of the moon. The air here is different. It smells of damp grass, and the sweet, heavy scent of jasmine. The cypress trees stand like tall, dark sentinels, their branches unmoving in the still air. The crickets in the tall grass are the only choir. A repetitive, hypnotic, chirping that signals the deepness of the night. The small farmers who live just outside the gates are resting their weary limbs. They spent the day with the mattock and the plow, turning the rich, dark soil of Latium. Their hands are calloused, their skin is tanned a deep bronze. They have washed their feet in the irrigation ditches, and now they sleep on simple pallets of wool. The smell of the earth follows them into their dreams. A grounding, heavy scent that promises a harvest. In the communal areas, the public laundries, the fooleries, are quiet. The great stone vats where the clothes were trampled and cleaned are still. The smell of the cleaning agents has dissipated, replaced by the scent of the evening dew. The clothes that were hung to dry on the rooftops are now heavy with moisture. They hang limp and silent, like ghosts in the moonlight. Everything that was active and loud is now passive and still. The stone of the city itself, the travertine and the tuff, is releasing the last of its heat. If you were to place your hand against the side of a building, it would feel like a living thing, slowly cooling down, preparing for the frost of the early morning. The architecture of Rome is a mountain made by hand, and even mountains must sleep. The arches and the columns, the stairways and the porches, they are all resting, holding the history of the day in their grain. The streets are so narrow that the stars are only visible as a thin ribbon of light, far above the rooftops, but that ribbon is bright. It is a guide for the few night watchmen, the vigiles, who walk their rounds with slow, steady steps. They carry small lanterns, the light dancing on the walls as they pass. They do not speak, they only listen, listening for the crackle of a stray spark, or the sound of a door being tampered with. Their presence is a quiet shadow, a silent promise of safety. The animals of the city, the dogs that sleep in the doorways, the mules in their pens, they are all part of the hush. A dog may twitch in its sleep, dreaming of a scrap of meat from the butcher's stall, but it does not bark. The city is too heavy with sleep for noise. The very air feels thick, like a curtain of velvet, drawn across the eyes of the world. The night is moving toward its coldest point, the hour when the dreams are deepest, and the world is furthest from the sun. You can feel the weight of the blankets, the softness of the straw, the rhythm of the city's breath is your own breath, slow, even, and deep. You are walking through the history of the ordinary, the simple lives that built the world, and you are finding, in their quiet routines, a path to your own rest. The darkness is a comfort. The silence is a gift. The city of Rome is a memory, and that memory is fading into the soft, gray edges of sleep. The first hint of the fourth watch is approaching, that thin, fragile window of time before the sun begins its ascent. The air is at its crispest, and the deep silence of Rome has reached its peak. In the small corners of the streets, and the hidden alcoves of the houses, the small shrines, the lararia, sit in the darkness. They are the heart of the home, the sacred spaces of the ordinary people. A small terracotta lamp, its wick nearly exhausted, casts a tiny, amber glow on the figurines of the household gods, the laras. They are carved from wood, or molded from simple clay. They are the guardians of the family, the silent watchers of the threshold. They have stood through the night, as they have stood for generations, watching the slow, rhythmic rise and fall of the sleepers' chests. The air in the rooms is cool now. The charcoal in the braziers has turned to a soft, powdery gray ash. It holds a faint, deep warmth at its core, but the heat has mostly faded, leaving the room in a state of perfect, refreshing chill. The blankets, woven of thick, coarse wool, are pulled tight. They provide a heavy, comforting pressure that anchors the body to the bed. The preparation for the day begins in the absolute quiet. A mother wakes before the others. Her movements are fluid and soundless. She does not light a large lamp. She moves by touch, and by the faint starlight filtering through the shutters. She reaches for a small jar of salted grain, a simple offering for the spirits of the house. She sprinkles it slowly, grain by grain, onto the altar. The sound is like a whisper, a tiny, rhythmic patter. The streets outside are starting to turn from black to a deep, misty blue. The fog from the Tiber has crept into the low-lying areas, wrapping the base of the Capitoline Hill in a soft, white shroud. It muffles the sound of the river, it hides the sharp edges of the stone, it creates a world of softness and blurred lines, where nothing is harsh, and everything is still. The water in the public basins is perfectly still, a dark mirror reflecting the fading stars. Then, a single drop of condensation falls from an overhead pipe, creating a ripple that spreads outward, slowly, slowly, toward the stone rim. It is the only movement in the forum, a single, perfect circle of water, in a city of stone. The clothing for the day is lifted from the wooden chest. The fabric is cool against the skin, a reminder of the transition from the world of dreams to the world of the sun, but the sun is not yet here. There is still time to linger, in the half-light. There is still time to listen to the silence, to feel the weight of the history that lives in every brick and every tile. The tradesmen, the cobblers and the smiths, are beginning to stir in their small lofts. They move with a slow, heavy grace. They are not yet fully awake, they are still carrying the peace of the night with them. They run their hands over their tools, the cold iron, the smooth wood, the worn leather. It is a familiar, grounding ritual, a bridge between the rest of the night and the labor of the day. The children are the last to wake. They are buried deep under the covers. Their dreams are lingering, like the last wisps of fog in the valleys. They are safe, they are warm, they are surrounded by the walls of a city that has stood for centuries, and will stand for centuries more. They breathe in the scent of the cooling hearth and the damp morning air, and they are at peace. The transport of the morning has not yet begun. The heavy wagons have finished their deliveries and are exiting the gates. Their rumbling is a distant, fading memory. The streets are being handed back to the pedestrians, but for this brief, magical hour, they belong to no one. They are empty vessels of history, waiting for the light to fill them. The grain for the morning meal is being ground in small hand mills. The sound is a low, steady drone, a grumbling, rhythmic hum, that vibrates through the floorboards. It is a domestic sound, a sound of the home, a sound that says the world is beginning to turn again, but it turns slowly, it turns gently, it does not rush the sleeper. The light is changing, the deep blue is becoming a soft, pale gray, the stars are retreating, one by one, into the vast, infinite sky, but the city remains quiet. The transition is seamless, a slow, beautiful unfolding of time itself. You are watching it from a distance, from a place of perfect safety and perfect rest. The night has been long, and the night has been kind. The stories of the ordinary people, the weavers, the bakers, the children, they are all tucked away now, in the corners of your mind. They are the echoes of a world that is gone, but their peace remains, their rest is your rest. Their silence is your. The very first ray of light is touching the highest point of the city, a single, thin line of pale gold, reaching out to brush the gilded roof of the Temple of Jupiter on the Capitoline. It is a silent contact, a gentle awakening of the stone. The gold does not shine with a harsh glare, it glows with a soft, warm radiance, like a candle being brought into a dark room. The rest of the city remains in the cool, blue shadow, cradled in the lingering peace of the night. The morning mist in the Forum is beginning to swirl, reacting to the slight change in temperature. It moves like a slow-motion dancer, weaving between the columns of the Temple of Saturn, and the heavy, silent arches of the Basilica Julia. The white marble of the statues looks like soft skin in this light. Their eyes, carved from stone, seem to blink as the shadows shift and retreat. Everything is fluid, everything is quiet. Everything is in a state of becoming. Below the great hills, the ordinary people are finishing their final moments of deep sleep, the phase where the body feels most heavy, and the mind is most still. The weaver, the porter, the vegetable seller, they are all anchored to their mats by a pleasant, leaden exhaustion. The light above them is growing, but here in the narrow streets, the darkness is stubborn, it clings to the corners, and the deep recesses of the doorways, preserving the sanctuary of the night. A single bird, perhaps a swallow nesting in the eaves of a granary, gives a short, melodic chirp. The sound carries clearly through the silent air, echoing once, twice, against the brickwork. Then silence returns, a deeper silence than before. It is the sound of the world holding its breath, the moment of perfect balance between the stars and the sun, between the dream and the day. The simple clothing of the household is now being donned. The rustle of wool against wool is a soft, rhythmic whisper, the sound of a father pulling on his tunic, the sound of a mother smoothing the fabric of her stola. it is the sound of preparation, but it is done with a quiet reverence for the fading night. No one speaks, the morning is too sacred for words, the silence is a garment they all wear together. The water in the fountains is now catching the light. The droplets that spray from the stone lions' mouths are turning into tiny, falling diamonds. They splash into the basins with a crisp, clear tone, like the chiming of a distant bell. It is the music of the city, a constant, flowing melody that has played while the world slept, and will continue to play as the world wakes. The water is cold, pure, and eternal. The smell of the morning is changing. The damp, earthy scent of the night is being joined by the faint, sweet smell of the first baking bread. It is a warm, toasted aroma, drifting from the deep stone ovens of the Pastrina. It speaks of sustenance, and the simple continuity of life. It is a smell that brings a sense of security, a feeling that all is well, and the rhythm of the world remains unbroken. The children are beginning to stir, their small hands reaching out to feel the texture of the blankets. They are not ready to leave the warmth. They curl into small, soft balls, listening to the distant, muffled sounds of the city waking up, the clink of a bucket, the soft thud of a door, the rhythmic brushing of a broom on a stone floor. These are the heartbeats of Rome, the tiny, repetitive actions of millions of ordinary lives. The streets are no longer empty, but the movements are slow. A lone figure walks toward the river, their sandals making a rhythmic shush. Shush, shush, against the stones. It is a sound of purpose, but not of haste. There is time. There is always time in the eternal city. The stone has seen thousands of such mornings, and it will see thousands more. The continuity is a comfort, a heavy blanket of history that wraps around the soul. The light is now descending from the mountaintops, creeping down the marble facades, and spilling into the upper windows of the tall insulae. The wood of the balconies begins to creak as it warms, a soft, settling sound. The city is expanding, stretching, waking up with the same gentle grace with which it fell asleep. It is a beautiful, slow-motion transition, a bridge between the world of the spirit and the world of the hand. You are watching this from a place of deep stillness. You are the observer of the centuries, the witness to the quiet peace of the past. The light does not disturb you. It only confirms that you are safe, that the world is constant, and that the rest you have found is well deserved. The shadows are retreating, but they leave behind a sense of calm, a sense of belonging to the long, slow story of humanity. The air is filling with the soft gray light of a new day, but the quiet remains. It is a quiet that you can carry with you, a quiet that lives in the stones of Rome, and in the steady rhythm of your own breath. The city is awake. But it is peaceful, and you are drifting, drifting, into the soft, golden light of a dreamless sleep. The history of the day is beginning, but the peace of the night is yours to keep. The great gates of the city, the Porta Capena and the Porta Carmentalis, are being unbolted now. The heavy iron bars are slid back with a low, resonant groan of metal against stone. The sound is deep, a bass note that vibrates through the morning mist. The guards move slowly, their armor clinking softly, a rhythmic, metallic chime that signals the opening of the world. The massive wooden doors swing wide, revealing the road ahead, disappearing into the soft, silver haze of the Roman Campagna. Outside the walls, the first of the country folk are waiting. They have traveled through the night, their small wooden carts laden with the treasures of the earth. The flower sellers are the first to enter. Their wagons are overflowing with the scents of the Italian spring. There are bundles of deep, velvet roses, and bright yellow marigolds, and the delicate, waxy petals of lilies. The scent precedes them into the streets, a sweet, floral cloud that cuts through the damp smell of the river. It is a gentle, fragrant invasion. The carts move with a slow, swaying motion, the wooden wheels turning, creak, 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 against the cooling axles. The donkeys that pull them are small and sturdy, their ears twitching at the sound of the city waking. They move with a patient, steady pace, their hooves making a soft, rhythmic patter on the basalt blocks of the Appian Way. They are not in a hurry, the morning belongs to the quiet, and the slow. The flower sellers begin to set up their small stalls near the shadows of the temples. They handle the blooms with calloused but gentle hands. Arranging the colors in the gray light, the petals are still heavy with the morning dew, tiny beads of water that catch the first hints of pink in the sky. The sellers do not shout their wares yet, they speak in low, hushed tones, respecting the lingering sleep of the neighborhoods. Their voices are a soft murmur, like the sound of a distant stream. The ordinary people of the city are now fully entering their morning routines, but the pace remains calm. The water carriers are filling their jars at the fountains, the ceramic vessels making a hollow, clunking sound against the stone. The water flows with a steady, splashing rhythm, cold and clear. It is the first touch of the day, a refreshing, grounding sensation. They carry the heavy jars on their shoulders, their movements balanced and slow. In the small vegetable stalls, the greens are being laid out on wooden crates, the dark, crinkled leaves of kale, the pale stalks of leeks, and the round, earthy globes of onions. They are the colors of the garden, brought into the heart of the stone city. The smell is fresh, and green, and clean. It is the smell of the morning itself, a promise of health, and simple, honest work. The light has now reached the level of the streets. The long, horizontal rays of the sun are cutting through the alleyways, turning the floating dust into grains of dancing gold. The shadows are long, and thin, and soft. They stretch across the cobbles, retreating inch by inch as the sun climbs higher. The warmth is beginning to be felt on the skin, a gentle, tingling heat that chases away the chill of the fourth watch. The children are now appearing in the doorways, their hair tousled, their eyes still soft with the memories of dreams. They help their parents with the morning tasks, sweeping the dust from the threshold with brooms made of twigs. The sound is a rhythmic, dry hiss, sweep, sweep, sweep. It is a domestic sound, a sound of order and care. The children move with a quiet, focused energy. Their world is small, and safe, and predictable. The transport of the city is now a steady flow, but it is the transport of the people, not the heavy machines of a later age. It is the sound of sandals, and hooves, and the soft, rhythmic creaking of baskets. It is a human-scaled sound. A sound that fits within the natural world. It does not jar the senses, it lulls them into a state of peaceful observation. The great temples are now fully bathed in light. The white marble is brilliant, almost glowing from within. The smoke from the morning sacrifices begins to rise, a thin, straight ribbon of blue-gray incense, drifting toward the heavens. The scent is resinous and sweet, a holy smell that marks the start of the day's spiritual life. It is a scent that has filled this air for 1,000 years, and will fill it for 1,000 more. You are standing on the edge of this awakening, a silent witness to the beauty of the ordinary. The world of ancient Rome is unfolding before you, but it is doing so with a gentleness that invites you to stay, to linger, to rest. The light is warm, the sounds are rhythmic, and the air is filled with the scent of flowers and wood smoke. Everything is in its proper place. And everything is at peace. The day has begun, but the stillness remains in your heart. The history of the ordinary is a long, slow, and soothing song, and you are part of the melody. The city is golden, the air is sweet, and you are falling, slowly, into the deep, quiet, and eternal rest of the ages.